Welcome everybody to my first ever webinar. Virtual talks are always kind of like awkward to me for a couple of reasons, but they do have pros and cons, right? For the pros, like I can wear my space pants and I could talk to a ton of you all at one time. But the con, right, being that like I can't really hear anybody's reactions or see any faces, so I'm sort of like talking to a brick wall. And normally in these types of situations, right, I'd like run up on stage and be like, "What's up, people?" And you'd all go woo, and then I'd tell you weren't doing it loud enough, and then you'd go woo louder. But I can't do that. So if you could go ahead and like drop in the chat like your best woo, like best woo, I'm telling you, brownie points for all caps, but go ahead and drop that in there so that I can see later that everybody was fired up at their desks. That would be excellent. Okay, let's go. Oh, we should go. I should hit the button that makes the slides change, shouldn't I? Why are the slides not changing? Oh my God. Huh, okay, I did it. That was rough. So difficult. The talk is over. We can all go home. So yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't fully figure out what a webinar was until like this morning at midnight, because I wrote a talk and then I was talking to someone. They're like, "Oh, it's a webinar, like an interactive thing." I'm like, that would have been really cool if this wasn't due tomorrow. So yeah, I'm giving what is more a presentation type thing. But yeah, I did look it up afterwards. But I will say this. So I would encourage you to maybe take a second just to think about, maybe brainstorm, jot down like 1 to 3 things, maybe just 1 to 2 things that you have been procrastinating, right? That you think to yourself all the time, like, I really need to do that. Or like you say out loud, you need to do it a bunch of times, but like keep not. For me, it's just like getting a haircut. It's been like 8 months. You'd think that I wouldn't say it every week. But
cleaning
yeah,
my glasses.
Yes. Oh my God, my life. So yeah, just write them down. But like as you listen, see if you can kind of like maybe identify what emotion they're attached to. And if you feel comfortable sharing that in the chat, I'm sure that a lot of people will relate. So yeah, see if you can see what identify what emotion it is, and you might be surprised to find that you are able to maybe troubleshoot that a little bit. So for any of you who aren't familiar with me or my work, I am Dani Donovan. I was a graphic designer and illustrator formerly for a long time, and then I made this storytelling flowchart, which just went viral and took off. And I realized that there's this really kind of invisible community that hadn't been seen for a long time and didn't feel like we had much of a voice, which is so funny because so many of us are very loud people. But I really enjoyed making comics that describe those experiences, and then shifted into, oh, I found this TikTok thing and started making TikToks to describe those experiences. And then, kind of shifted into making some more shorter form content that about all the ways I trick my brain into doing stuff, which like sneakily turned into a book. And so now I guess I'm like an author and stuff. I do a lot of things. That's the ADHD. But so this is a kind of step-by-step guide of how to trick your brain into doing stuff, because mine does not always want to cooperate. And yet I have still been able to, reach a lot of those goals. I'm excited to share some of those tips with you today. So something important here that I feel like a lot of productivity advice things kind of miss is like, I'm not going to tell you not to procrastinate. You know that. You already know that. That is not helpful. And I would be such a hypocrite. I'm not in the business of giving people advice that I cannot live by myself. Like we all have enough of it already. So, and it says I finished writing this talk 20 minutes before it started. In all honesty, it was probably like putting finishing touches on it like 3 minutes before we went live. So, so step 1, right, to getting the stuff done is going to be to forgive yourself for struggling. Like you can feel bad all you want about that, the fact that you procrastinated, but like it's not going to make the thing any easier. If anything, it's just going to make it harder, right? And it's completely normal. Like even if it happens to you all the time and you feel like really overwhelmed, like that is still normal. You are part of a normal group of people who also do that, right? It's not just you comparing yourself to, you know, everyone in their life who like seems like they have their life together. But procrastination really is kind of this common reaction to stress, right? And it's pretty irrational a lot of the times, and because we're acting against our own best interest, right? Like I see this $8 medical bill sitting on the counter. I have $8 in my account. Why don't I just do the, you know, go do the thing and mail the check? And I'm like, well, I have to find stamps. I don't even know if I think I have stamps. Anything with stamps is dead to me. Maybe, and I'll just wait for it to show up in the mail again, right? It doesn't make sense. And then before you know it, right, like, oh, that went to collections. Cool, right? This self-sabotaging behavior that just doesn't make logical sense. But like with, right, people with ADHD, we have some issues, right, with our prefrontal cortex, the area that's supposed to help take care of task initiation and planning and like executing that stuff. But since we don't have that kind of as in our wheelhouse, a lot of times I think it kind of waits till it hits that amygdala, the emotional side of our brain, that like anxiety or shame, like those emotions take over, and that kicks us into gear, right? That'll throw on the start switch. So instead of trying to be like, don't let it get to that point, I really am trying to help everybody understand that like last minute panic, if that is something that you have used as a crutch to like get stuff done, it's worked. I would say it's worked to you for you up to this point. Like if it didn't work at all, nobody would ever do it. That's very weird advice to be giving people. My advice is more around how to make it so you don't have like a meltdown every time that it happens, I guess. But it does really force you to get a small amount of work done in a large period of time. But it's not addressed that way in standard productivity advice, right? All the typical advice you're going to get out there is here's how to prevent yourself from falling into the hole, and not, oh, you're in the hole, here's how to get out, right? So a lot of these systems, like, oh my gosh, you should just get a planner, are dismissive and a little condescending. But they require a lot of consistency and discipline and willpower, and that is not in a lot of people's skill sets. And so that impacts us, right? That impacts our view of ourselves. If I am not someone who can keep up with that, that means something's wrong with me, and not, this was not built for me or people like me. This was built for someone who is okay doing the same thing every single day. And so we end up wasting a lot of money, but like you see people with ADHD are just so resilient and like, I got to find the thing. Like maybe this is the thing. That's not the thing. Maybe this is the thing. Right. Because one solution can't solve for everything. And like, if I showed you like 3, you know, kind of metal things, and I said, all right, I need you to hammer these into the wall. You might say like, okay, cool. Let me grab my hammer. And you hit the first one and it goes in great. Awesome. Second one, no, it's not wanting to go in like the first one, and neither is the third one. And you're like, what's wrong with me? Like, why is this so hard? I did the other one like so easily, you know, they're already all done. Like, why can't I do this? Something's wrong with me. Without taking time to maybe zoom in and learn so much about why there's resistance in the first place. Like, oh, okay, that checks out. These are different problems that I'm trying to solve with the same tool, right? The reason why there's resistance here is because I'm using a tool that was not built to solve for this problem. You know, oh, I need a screwdriver. I don't need I guess I should have said, I need a screwdriver. I don't need a hammer. Or I need this type of screwdriver. I don't need this type of screwdriver. Right. But like, ultimately, like you are not the problem. It's trying to solve a problem with the wrong tool. Right. And so you deserve a better toolbox, right? It's no good if you open up your toolbox and all it is hammers. All you can really do is like struggle around, you know, with the trying to hammer in screws every time you encounter one. But using these tools is about assessing the outcome that you want, and then what strategy it's going to take to kind of help you achieve it with that least amount of resistance. And so this whole kind of spiel in my book, The Anti-Planner, my shameless plug, is really about giving a variety of different exercises that are broken down and divided out by the type of mental hurdle, that type of resistance that you are dealing with. So so step one is forgiving yourself. Step two is identifying where that mental resistance is kind of coming from, right? So procrastination is the problem, but zooming in again can help us see what we actually need to do. Because a lot of times there are those like emotions and fears that are making things way harder than they need to be. But since you don't see them as emotions and fears, you see them like as yourself. And so you blame yourself. But that self-awareness of how your emotions come together can help you pick the type of strategy that's needed. So I'm going to cover 16 of the common emotional roadblocks. I've got a lot of stuff after that, so I'm going to kind of try and whiz through these, but there's a really big like deep dive about them throughout the book. And I highly encourage you to use the chat function. So if I'm discussing an emotion,
we got
like
chat enabled.
Yeah.
And people are definitely using it.
Excellent. If I'm discussing an emotion that really resonates with you, drop personal examples in the chat of something you've been struggling with or how that emotion impacts your life. And I love these types of chats because there's so many people being like, oh my God, I have an $8 medical bill, so it's not just me, like your examples, the things from your life that you carry around as shame, like have the ability to help someone else feel better about themselves and not feel better about themselves in the way other people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that. Like feel better. And they're like, oh my God, I do that too. It's not just me, right? That's the best feeling. That's my job. That's what I do all day is make people say, oh my God, it's not just me. So yeah, it'll feel good to have some validation from other people. So anyways, yes, use the chat. First area we're going to cover is that like stuck, like, I'm like behind this wall and I can't move forward and I can see, I know what I need to do. It's right there, but it's not happening. It's not happening. Right. So that can be for a couple of reasons. One of them is just having difficulty starting to begin with, right? Where you're thinking about the thing and not taking the action to get that initial, inertia going, right? Initial inertia. No. But you might get really frustrated with yourself, a bit exasperated, and it'll often take less time than you even think, right? I have a TikTok I made a while back about how the trunk of my car was full for 4 straight years. And then I finally decided to clean it out. And it took me 18 minutes. And I was so angry at myself that I like couldn't even feel proud that I finally did it. I was like, are you joking me? It took me this long to do it. And it, didn't take that long at all. I could have done this forever ago. But it is that like thinking about doing it and then not doing it for forever. That indecisive feeling also, right? Analysis paralysis or research rabbit holes, fear of making the wrong choice. What if there are consequences? I want to make sure I'm able to like optimize it. But then there's like this hits me all the time on stuff that I want to do, right? So I just took up watercolor painting and I've got all my stuff out. And I sit down, I'm like, ooh, okay, do I want to paint a color wheel? Do I want to paint do I want to swatch some paints? Do I want to just do free flow? Should I try one of these tutorials? Should I watch it? And I think I spend so much time sitting here thinking about watercolor, and now it's been 2 hours and the time that I had allotted to do it is gone and my energy is zapped. And I've thought about it for 2 hours. I haven't done anything. So it's not just procrastinating stuff that you don't want to do. It's even stuff that you do want to do. Right. And so that also kind of leads over to this perfectionism, right? This is one of the biggest sections in the book for me that I struggle with, is having this really deep pride in my work, and this need to live up to your potential. If that is like a trigger phrase for you, you are in my boat. But having that kind of need for external validation and that fear of mistakes and criticism, and of being average. Like being mediocre for perfectionists is like a punch in the gut, right? So like, yeah, I'll pull an all-nighter to make this look exactly the way I want it to look, even if it ends up, making me burnt out in the process. So And then distractions, right? Where you end up losing track of time. The knowing that need to get off of your phone, but like continue scrolling, and there's just like the internal voice in the back of your head that's screaming, "What are you doing?" And you're just ignoring it, hoping it, eventually goes quiet. And you do a lot of the like internal bargaining, even of like, oh, I'll do one more episode and then I'll start working, right? And so like, even for example, I was working on this talk yesterday, and it was so difficult because I haven't been making TikToks for a while, and I made one and it's starting to go viral, and I'm like, oh, I want to check the comments. No, like, because then I take out the phone to check the comments, and now I'm like, oh, well, what's on my For You page? And before I know it, it's been an hour. So another section kind of in the book is, right, overwhelm. And that's your brain's way of trying to get you to just slow down, right? Your body exhibits pain to tell you that there's something wrong, but your brain is exhibiting anxiety to tell you like, ooh, hold up, right? So intimidation, this one hits home too. They're just like, I don't want to deal with this right now. Like, not today. I know it's important, but not tomorrow either. I don't know. Nope. I don't want to think about it even, right? It feels like it's going to be a lot of work, and you start avoiding stuff because of that anxiety and fear. And it's not even just intimidation by like large projects, although that can definitely be a thing of like, there's so many things I need to do. Some of the times it's like small things or like mundane things, like, oh, someone hit my car and there's a dent in it and I need to get my car fixed. I need to call the insurance company. Yeah. I have to look up. I don't know who to call. I don't know what to say. I've never had to do this. I don't know where to take my car. You know what? It's fine. I'll just drive around with a dent in my car. Like, that happens to me all the time, right? That acting against your own self-interest because it feels like I don't know what I'm doing, so I guess I'll just live with this situation. And then overcommitment, right? Having these really heavy expectations for yourself, and then other people maybe adopting those expectations for you, and it can lead you to start prioritizing other people's needs above your own, and really kind of scattering your focus about all of these things because nothing is getting your actual undivided attention. And so the perfect example of this is being like Luisa from Encanto, right? Of like feeling worthless if you can't be of service. But also it can apply to just having a difficult time setting boundaries and enforcing boundaries with people in your own life, right? Like, you have a limited amount of free time, and like, I don't want to spend my free time at baby showers. Like, I could send gifts, I can do, but like, I can't. And there's like societal pressure for some of those things for me to put that on my calendar and block off a part of your day that you might want to spend doing something that like calms you and refreshes you. So overcommitment isn't even just about tasks, right? It can also be about these kinds of expectations put on you by other people. And then panic, right? We've all been there. This for like freaking the heck out, meltdown mode, where your thoughts are going super fast and are feeling very like emotionally hypersensitive, maybe catastrophizing about the worst case scenario, and mainly afraid of running out of time and afraid of getting in trouble. And everything sort of feels like this end of the world, fight, flight, or freeze kind of situation. And so this one I feel like may hit home with some people where, okay, I've got this big project for work. I've got so much time. Okay, well, I haven't started it, but it's fine. Okay, I haven't started it, but it's fine. Okay, well, this is due like tomorrow, but it's okay. I can totally get it done tonight. I'll just have to work late. And then you go in there and you realize that you need someone to answer a question for you before you can do this. Like, you don't have the information that you need. And you asking for the information that you need will indicate to that other person that you have not started this yet. And so now there's this weird shame spiral of like, do I do that and like out myself, or do I just pull an all-nighter and try to figure it out on my own? And I'm going this way, like every time. So, which then can lead very easily to burnout, where you're just kind of running on fumes, right? And you're going to break your car if you keep trying to drive on an empty tank. Because at this point, you're kind of maybe even neglecting your own body's needs. Like you might start having physical symptoms and I'm the same way, right? Like, oh, why is my like eye like twitchy and stuff? And you aren't taking time to like decompress because you don't have time to decompress. And so there's this weird, I don't deserve to feel burnt out thing that can happen there. Especially people thinking that burnout is only for like working 16-hour days, but sometimes it's doing something mentally exhausting that takes 1 hour, having a really, really hard conversation that you've been dreading, or like therapy, right? Something like that. And you can't function for the rest of the day because you're just emotionally burnt out. Let's see what else we got. Unmotivated. Oh my gosh, I got that ADHD med dry mouth happening.
It's a thing.
Y'all understand me.
Yes.
So let's see. In unmotivated, there are a couple areas. Waiting to feel like it, I would say, is what most people think of when they think of procrastination, right? It's the, oh yeah, like I will, just not right now. Not the, I don't, that's so anxiety producing. Let me not deal with that right now. Like intimidated is, this is just like, oh, there's no rush. Like I'll get around to it. Right. I want the conditions to be right. And so kind of an example I have for this is we want to be able to let our cats out on the back deck. We just got a house on the back deck. But one of our cats is an escape artist who used to be an outside cat before we adopted him. And I bought this like screen mesh to put around the deck. So because he keeps trying to like get around everything. And I have the tape, I have the mesh, I have all this stuff, and still haven't done it. And it's been months. And every day it was like, oh, I'm too tired. I don't have enough energy. Like, oh, I had a really long day. Oh, it's too hot out. Oh, it's too humid out. Like every single thing, every day there's at least one thing where, oh no, not today. And this is why. I'm really good at finding the excuses for myself to not have to engage with the task. And then accountability, right? If you are someone who is reliant on that external pressure, it can be so, so difficult to perform when it is not there, right? Without someone breathing down my neck, like there are people out there apparently who just have this like internal motivation of like, oh yeah, I wanted to do that. And I thought about it. And then I just sat down and then I just did it. And I'm like, that seems fake. Like, I don't believe you. Really? What is that like, right? But the things that drive a lot of behavior with this is that like fear of getting in trouble, fear of upsetting others. Again, with people with ADHD, it's being driven by those emotions, by those anxieties, those fears, the shame of someone else being disappointed in you, because I'm used to being disappointed in myself all the time. So that's not enough of a motivator because it just hasn't historically worked. But someone else being disappointed in me will like kick my brain into high gear. But if no one knows if I do something, like, does it really need to get done? Right. And this is particularly difficult for me for like exercise, which I just don't enjoy. Right. I've got physical conditions that give me like exercise intolerance and fatigue and stuff, but like it's still important for me to do that sometimes. But if I don't do it, no one's gonna like call me out on it. Right. But if it's a physical therapy appointment, some sort of social activity like disc golfing, or like a class, like someone will know that I'll skip, like I'll show up to those every time. And it's because I really do rely on that accountability to make myself do things. Let's see. Disinterested is, I mean, this is kind of goes without saying, but like hating doing those like unpleasant, boring, repetitive tasks. Don't like being uncomfortable, or worse, just wasting precious time that I could be using to do fun things like scroll TikTok instead of doing boring things like filing my taxes, right? But like one of the biggest things for this is how something on the bottom layer can like stack up into a lot of other areas. So like, let's say the thing I don't want to do because it's a sensory issue, right? It's gross, is getting rid of the leftovers in the fridge. They are gross. They are moldy. I don't know how long they've been in there. I don't know why they're in there in the first place. I knew I wasn't going to eat them, but I felt bad throwing them out now. So now I have to throw them out. They're all gross. but I don't want to. So I've been putting it off. But now I need new groceries because all of that is bad. But I don't want to buy new groceries because then I would have to deal with all of the moldy food in the fridge. So instead of ordering groceries or going and getting groceries and dealing with the fridge, I'm just going to continue to waste a bunch of money on lukewarm DoorDash, right? I'm just going to watch it just bleed my bank account because I am avoiding the sensory experience of dealing with cleaning out leftover containers, and then uninspired, right, is also a challenging area because it's not the same of like, I hate this thing, I don't want to do it. It's at one point I really did like this or want to do this, but I don't anymore. My passion and spark have kind of died. And so when that momentum's gone, it can be difficult to bring it back, right? And it especially is difficult if you have quit a lot of things before. I'm sure none of you have abandoned hobbies, and all of us are extremely good at seeing through on long-term goals.
I'm just gonna laugh out loud to that.
Yes. Cue my sewing machine and Cricut machine and all the supplies I got, thinking I was going to make everybody in my life Christmas presents. And then I made like one coffee cup, a pencil pouch, and some face masks. And now they're all just shoved in this like abandoned hobbies closet. Right. But I can't get rid of them because maybe one day I'll feel inspired enough to bring it back up. And then we've got disorganized, right? So there's messiness. This can be digital and physical spaces, right? So being overwhelmed by visual stimuli like this can make it really challenging to even like, not just to know where things are, but to want to deal with making it neat again. So I would like to use the little, I don't know, I don't think I could see anything yet, but I was like, use the little raise hand thing. Raise your hand if you would be really embarrassed if someone saw the state of your computer desktop right now.
I'll raise my, I'm going to raise virtually and in person.
You're like, how many hands can I have?
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks. But it can be really, right, like I would say, this like embarrassment, like, but it's people feel embarrassed. Like it's your computer desktop. Like, why do you care? Right. But the only issue ends up becoming when you can't find the stuff that you need, or if you don't have some sort of organized, system for it. Or if you're me and you're really good at coming up with organizational systems and this is exactly where everything goes, and then you make it too complicated and time intensive to maintain. And then you're not organizing until you have the energy to put everything exactly back where it goes. And it's just, so there's a lot. I talk about this so much in the book. I could do I will say originally this entire talk was just this. So I have a lot more things to say about all of these, but difficulty prioritizing, right? Being all over the place, having poor time management. And when everything feels important, nothing is, right? So for me, even working on this PowerPoint where I spent a lot of time wanting everything to look like really pretty and gorgeous, just to realize that like the content wasn't all finalized. And so then I'm like scrambling to make sure I can kind of get all of that done because I was focused on something that kind of could have come secondary. And then the last section, I promise, discouragement. The first one of feeling hopeless, right? And having that kind of defeated outlook of like, ugh, everything sucks. This sucks. I suck, right? From having those repeated failures, and being disappointed time and time again over your expectations not being met, and things not turning out how you wanted them to. And you can just feel really like heartbroken that you've either let yourself down or let other people down. And a lot of times we kind of get these ruminating thoughts, and it becomes less about having failed at like a thing and becomes more, I fail as a person. Like I feel like a failure, right? And so you kind of can get a lot of those thoughts of like, oh, I can't believe I thought this time would be different. Why do I even bother? And then insecurity, this was the last one. The other one was kind of like an overall feeling about like yourself as a person, but insecurity is a lot more to do kind of in the moment. A lot of second guessing and imposter syndrome, but it's always comparison with other people or what other people will think a lot of the times. because of a lot of internalized criticism, right? If you've been criticized by something before, your brain's like, okay, I want to make sure that doesn't happen again. Let's make sure we think through everything and every little single detail so that nobody can criticize anything. If we criticize ourselves way too much up front, like it won't leave anything for anybody else to say, right? So for example, like feeling like you're not good enough or something's not good enough, I have on here, worried, will people think my talk is all over the place? Am I trying to cover too much ground? Am I going too fast? What if I run out of time? Will people hate it if I read off bullets? Will anyone even come to this? What if I don't practice enough? Like, even though I'm pretty secure in the content of this itself, right? Like the insecurity still finds a way to creep up. But if you can go, so I circled back. This is still step 2. This is just recapping that, identifying the mental resistance behind the procrastination task, like making it about the emotion and not about you, can help you figure out what tool you need to use. Haha, segues. And so step 3 is about choosing a strategy. And I'm going to walk through kind of the different ways that can help do that, either through, right, the anti-planner, which again, I worked real hard on it. If you want it, it's awesome. But if you don't, you're going to be able to come away from this talk with a lot of ideas from the anti-planner that you can just do on your own, that you don't need the anti-planner to do, as well as ideas on how to kind of do it yourself and create your own strategies based on your interests. So, all right, first kind of concept here is to make it easy. It's helpful for, difficulty getting started, intimidation, disinterested, messy, starting with making it like laughably small. Okay. So I heard on a podcast, they called it giggle goals, where like if you said it out loud, it's just like, oh, what's your exercise goal for the day, right? Instead of it being, okay, well, I want to walk for 20 minutes or 30 minutes every day. For me, it's like I did 2 things, like either just put on my exercise shoes and stand outside, right? Or walk to my next level up is walk to the stop sign at the end of our street. And then if I'm feeling really good, then I keep going, right? And so like having something though, where if I make it to the stop sign and go back, I'm not like, I only made it to the stop. It's just like, oh, I did it. I put on my shoes and I went, and I didn't feel like continuing to do more, but I met my goal of just, that's the bare minimum, right? And same thing. Okay, wait. And then let's see. Oh yeah, making it convenient. So as far as identifying those roadblocks of what is the thing I want to do more of and what is making me not do it. So if your goal is I want to floss more, thinking through like, why is it hard? Why don't I do that already more? I'm like, well, I don't make time to do it. I often forget about it altogether. And frankly, I get bored just standing there in front of the bathroom mirror, especially after I had to just stand there and brush my teeth. Like if I do it, I'm not doing a very good job because I just want to be done. And so how to make it easier is starting to keep flossing picks on the coffee table in the living room instead of in the bathroom. So like after we can sit and kind of like floss our teeth after dinner while watching TV. And it like has become like a bit of a fidget too. Like I'll just sit there and like do it. And it's something to do. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I wish I would have thought about this a long time ago. I got cat bombed in that picture, so I had to share it. So another thing here, making it fast. And so I really love doing speed runs. So this is really helpful for a couple different things, right? First drafts of things. If you're like, okay, I'm writing a paper or a book, for me, like the introductions for the anti-planner, oh my gosh, they're short. I made them short on purpose because I don't read long things. So I assume other people don't read long things. But they were still really hard to kind of get started. There's just a blank page. And so I would start a timer for 5 minutes and just write for 5 minutes, and then timer goes up. Okay, nope, next on to the next one, write 5 minutes on that one until I got through all 16. And now I can go back and refine all of those from the messy, like brain vomit, right? That's on there now. But the scary part is done. The scary part of the blank page is gone. Whatever I look at on the page, I know, oh, I don't like that, but I can update that to make it what I want. And this is also really helpful when it comes to cleaning, right? I used to keep a little visual time timer above where we had our dishes. And so it was one of those things where every day we try to set a 10-minute timer, and Josh and I would both just clean around the house together at the same time until the timer went off, and then we were done. It's like, I don't have to clean the entire kitchen. I don't have to clean the entire house. I'm just going to clean until this goes off, and then I'm done. And so, yeah, that goes back kind of to that bare minimum of like, what are the must-haves from your task or project where it can't be considered complete before those things are done. And then the nice to haves of like, in an ideal world, it would be great to be able to have all of these things. So if I have extra time, I'll get to those, but this helps you prioritize, like, this will not be considered done, or I will get in trouble if this isn't done. And then versus like spending so much time on those nice to haves. Okay, so that was all making it easy. Now we're going to go into making it fun, which is the best part. One of the best, okay, wait. I started a sentence. I should have drank first. For making it fun is kind of like adding an element of risk, right? So one of my oldest exercises that I've been doing with just a notebook for 4 years, I want to say now, I was like, I want to turn myself into like a D&D character, right? From the Dungeons and Dragons, for people who may not be familiar. You say an action that you want to take, and then, you know, roll a dice, and depending on what the number is, it correlates with your, if you either you did it really well, you like completely nailed it, or like you completely failed if you rolled a 1. And so for my to-do list, I would just write out a couple things I needed to do, and then I'd assign them ranges. And I'd make the thing that I really probably needed to do the most have the biggest range. So I'd be like, okay, well, 11 through 19 is to work on, you know, an anti-planner page. But 20 is always like a super fun activity that is just, if I roll in at 20, it's like, oh, the universe has just given me permission to keep procrastinating. Like, I don't make the rules, right? And it feels so good to get that happening, and that the chance of it happening is enough to make me engage in it. But like, you don't get to argue with a, you know, dungeon master playing D&D. You don't get to re-roll. You don't get to argue. If you roll the dice, whatever it lands on, you've got like this internal, I am bound to this, right? I took some like weird blood oath with my little dice. So, and then, as well as making it fun that way, you can also try to make things more challenging. So I've got some checklist challenges throughout the anti-planner of, you know, everything from self-care checklists to checklists to help you stop getting distracted by your phone so often. But this is one from the messy section that's about personal records. And so it's kind of taking tasks that you do a lot the same way every time, you know, cleaning your bathroom or emptying the dishwasher or folding a load of laundry, and setting a stopwatch and seeing how long it takes and writing that down. And then the next time you do it, setting a stopwatch and seeing if you can beat your score. And it's really fun because you'll start to know how long things take you to do, so that there's, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, you know, you're like, it only takes 4 minutes, right? I know that because I've done it 3 times now, and all of my scores are around 4 minutes. And there might be times though where you do end up shaving something off that you don't technically like need, and it makes your score go down, you know. But obviously, okay, use this one with caution. I am not responsible for any like broken china or anything from you throwing things in your cabinets. But it's a kind of a fun way to try and like and it makes things take less time, which also makes it easy and fast. So along those lines, we had kind of discussed, you know, using timers, but like using music as a timer, doing something like, I'm going to do this until this song is over, or until this specific playlist is over. I have a speed declutter playlist that I built back in 2015 that I still use to this day. And I know exactly along kind of like with each song where I should kind of be at. The same thing with like doing my makeup today, like right before I, you know, hopped on, I listened to like Welcome to the Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. I can do my makeup in 5 minutes, and I know at each part of the song, I'm like, okay, if they hit this part and I'm only at my blush, like I'm falling behind. I got to speed it up in order to kind of get it done. So things like that really do help. And then most people know about this, but using sort of mindless activities like doing laundry, pairing that with TV or an audiobook or a podcast. And then making things social can also have an incredible impact on how fun something is. So body doubling isn't necessarily fun, but it's where you and another person are both working on different things and just being quiet and like keeping each other company. But it makes it a lot easier to stay on track. And then I have task battle, not task battleship, not that. It is not, it does not say that. But you pretty much have like a 3x7 grid. You and another person take turns like writing down 7 tasks and then taking turns guessing where the other person has kind of hidden them. And if you hit one, they have to finish their task, tell you what they hit, finish that task before they can go again. And so the goal is then to try and find all of the other person's tasks. And it's fun because there is a chance that like you might only have to do 2 of your tasks and they have to do all 7 of theirs just because of, you know, how you were able to kind of get them. But it does also feel really gratifying making people do stuff. But yeah, it's been fun. And you can play also, I'll just say this, you can play with people online. I had been the person I play this the most with too, I'd been doing it on Twitter. So it doesn't require you to be in person. In fact, a lot of people do just play this over text. And so, yeah, it's pretty accessible that way. Making it matter is a little different than making it important, right? Because importance isn't something that always matters to my brain, especially if it's something that is important to somebody else. And it's supposed to be important to me because it's important to someone else. That does not always fly. So there's a few other ways to kind of get around this. And one of them is making it urgent. And an example from the anti-planner I've gotten here of the timer challenge. So it's sort of like the speed run I talked about earlier. But for this one, you kind of put out, okay, this is my main task, and here are all the subtasks I'm going to need to do in order to knock this out. And then you're going to set a maximum amount of time that you will let yourself work on that subtask, right? And then you add them all up and see the total time. And it is shocking. Like if you do this, it is sometimes upsetting because you see the total number. You're like, oh man, I didn't want to spend that long. Is that really how long that is? Did I add that right? You know, and then you might have to like reassess, like, okay, maybe I don't give myself that long to work on this part, or maybe I need to schedule this out across a couple of days. But anyways, then you start a timer and only let yourself work on that subtask for that amount of time. And when it goes off, you have to move on to the next one. And after you've done the whole thing, you can always kind of come back and tighten things up, but it does help put a little bit of a fire under your own butt to meet kind of a deadline. It's helpful also if you tell someone else about it, extra level of accountability there. So the next one, treat yourself. This is one of my favorite ones, which is literally just bribing yourself. This is bribing yourself with things. But it doesn't have to be these like, I'm going to buy myself a TV. You know, I'm not, unless it's something crazy, like I'm not saying to do that. But I don't like doing laundry. Some people do. I found out. What? It's the worst for me. And so I got a giant bag of Jolly Ranchers that live on top of the washing machine. Anytime I put a load in or move a load over or take a load out, I get a Jolly Rancher. And my brain's like, ooh, a piece of candy, right? And it's good though, because it's not a type of candy that I would just grab the bag and I'm tempted to just like sit and eat 100. Like I'm not going to eat 100 Jolly Ranchers, right? It's not like M&Ms or something like that. So that is pretty important, but it's worked really well actually. And then another thing, and this is something else, someone else can help treat you if you don't just want to treat yourself. My husband saw that I was struggling to finish some of the final edits for the Anti-Planner book before it went out. And he goes, when I'd picked up watercoloring, like I mentioned, and he goes, if you finish, write down what you need to get done. I wrote it down. He goes, if you finish this by this weekend, I will sign a contract. And whenever you ask me to watercolor with you, I have to say yes, unless I have existing plans. And I'm like, wait, what? He was like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And I was like, like went through so fast. It saved me so much time. I would have spent the entire weekend doing it. And, you know, I've been able to do similar things with like, hey, what are your goals? When do you want to get that done by? Okay, if you do that, I'll watch whatever anime you want this week with you, you know, and being able to bribe someone with quality time of something that they want to do. Like it's a really great way to help and support someone else who needs help doing stuff. And then here's the flip side of me and my husband. Grime and punishment, I stand by. That's one of my favorite titles I have come up with for my exercises, because we decided that like we have so many, you know, things, dishes that end up in the sink and wrappers that end up on the counter, and we need some sort of accountability system here. And so it ended up being whoever has a at the end of the day, we kind of like take an assessment and we're like, okay, Josh, you have 3 dishes and 2 wrappers out on the counter, and you have to do 10 push-ups for each of those things. So that's 50 push-ups. Because we hate putting stuff away, but not as much as exercise, it turns out. So it really, really does, you know, does help. And we don't stick with it forever. And here's the thing though, every once in a while, when things start to get bad, we like pull this strategy back out and, you know, maybe update a little bit. And maybe it's like, okay, well, you get 1 warning and it has to be done by 9 a.m. the next day. You know, so you can kind of tweak things like that as needed. And then I have accountability betting also up on here. So I had a friend who really wanted to get her cover letter and resume in somewhere and had kind of been, you know, poking around and like not finishing it. And I said, when do you want this done? And she was like, I want to get it done by tonight. But I said that yesterday. I said, how much money are you going to PayPal me if you don't finish it tonight? And she was like, what? And I'm like, not enough. That's gonna like, not, you can't pay your bills amount, but like not like $10 amount, like how, like give me a real number. And she told me, I'm like, okay, like you better send me a screenshot of that sent thing in your sent mail. And she did. And it was so exciting. You know, but it doesn't have to just be money for that accountability betting, right? Like I've had them with people where like, oh, you change your profile picture to your least favorite sports team with no caption for context, you know? So like doing kind of stuff like that with people can make it fun. And then this last area is about making it visual. So this is one of my favorites. I talk a lot in the book, especially in the messy section, about the ability to compare your visual progress, because a lot of us are visual people, and being able to compare, you know, have that kind of like glow up pic can be really, really useful here. And then I also am a really big proponent of filming time-lapse videos, putting your phone up on something. And I know they've got it on iPhones. I'm not sure about, I'm sure Androids have it too. But there's like a time-lapse feature, and it'll just take a picture every 15 seconds or something. And so it fulfills 2 purposes for me, right? I had to choose a time-lapse video to put in here because I've got probably like 20 on my phone. When something piles up that big, I set my phone up for the time-lapse thing, and it's really great because I can't get distracted by my phone because my phone is recording me, and I'm not going to get distracted doing something else because I'd literally there'd just be this giant chunk of the video of me sitting there being distracted. So and I also am not going to quit halfway through because I want that like gratification of having that awesome final, you know, video. And so it serves a lot of purposes, but I'm a big fan. And then let's see, this one, make it documentative. My project manager was like, you could make it a document. I'm like, all of these are adjectives. All of these must stay adjectives. So documentative it is. But showing visual progress towards a goal can be really helpful. But not in the way, I'm not a big proponent of keeping streaks going, right? Like, oh, every day I'm going to cross one of the things off, because as soon as you get to one and you don't, then I'm like, this is dead to me and I've now ruined everything, and the black and white thinking kind of kicks in. But for this is what I can sit down and do in one sitting. These are old ones that I did before I designed it into the anti-planner, but I would make a grid for like emails and draw it out for exactly how many emails were still in my inbox to deal with. And then I would set timers and see how many I could knock out in that timer, and see kind of how fast I could knock out these emails versus what would typically happen of me being perfectionistic and writing, over explaining, and, you know, spending too much thoughts on how to respond to people. It like really helped me kind of stay moving. And then you also get to feel proud of yourself afterwards because you hit the end, you're like, did you know when you hit inbox 0, there's like a little illustration and a little like good job message there, for anyone who's never seen it's a mystical place, inbox 0. And then making it creative and fun can be a good combo. So I all of these things are things I did on my own, on notebook paper, and I still have some of them out somewhere, but my procrastination hit list, where this is for those most avoided tasks, those like elusive bad boys who don't want to get caught. So the worst of the worst, the taxes and the finally taking the clothes to go donate the clothes and the bags and all that stuff go on here. And it's a bad like doodle, little dudes, little angry eyebrows, right? And so, but when I finish them, I get to like stab through the paper. And so that kind of has that creative twofold of getting a visual to-do list, right? I enjoy doodling, so I'm not just writing out the stuff and I'm not just checking it off. I like get to have this little like moment, which feels good because they're typically tasks that you don't like. They're weird. To be weird about it. It makes it fun. And then this one about making it symbolic. This is my lucky hoodie. I won't get into all of it, but it was my test taking hoodie since I was in middle school. It was my dad's from a disc golf tournament. And so now it's my like getting stuff done hoodie. And so I've got my getting stuff done hoodie. I've got certain, candle that I like to burn, and this certain, like I have my work coffee cup, because if I can turn it into kind of a ritual, it can help create that like, okay, it's time to work environment. Because even if I don't feel like working, I look around me and my brain's like, well, all indications show me that it is work time. So, because otherwise, why are you drinking out of your work mug, weirdo? Right. So those sensory cues can really help. And then this is the kind of like create your own section, as far as, those are a lot of examples from the anti-planner that are ripped out of my brain for things that, work for me. But if and again, in the anti-planner, all of this is in there. There's a DIY strategies area, but you can kind of think through those motivational themes of like what actually gets you to do stuff. Maybe risk and, consequences isn't your thing. Maybe that actually like has the opposite effect and you feel really like, it makes you so anxious that you can't perform. Like then those types of tasks, motivational techniques aren't going to work for you. Maybe fun is. And so pairing that with something that's of interest to you. So what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? Where do you like spending your time? Who do you like spending it with? What brings you joy? And like, what do you, especially for like treat yourself stuff, right? Of like, what do you think you might not get for yourself that would be like a worthy prize, right? And then also like, what do you want to know more about? What do you do anyway? And then gamification, thinking through maybe what types of games you enjoy, or like what game mechanics do you enjoy, either from board games or, video games, or even kind of mobile apps and stuff like that, to see if there are any little tidbits that you can pull from of like, I always kind of like this, uncertainty element of not knowing, it's down to the dice roll, that exciting kind of feeling. Being able to kind of mix those together can help create some cool stuff. So you can also remix your old strategies or other anti-planner activities. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. You can kind of improvise, right? In the same way that the anti-planner is sort of like a productivity cookbook. But that doesn't mean, sometimes, right, when something says like, oh, you need 1 clove of garlic, you're like, you need 5, right? You can put your own spin on things, put things into new context, and then add different strategies together or add, new kind of triggers to those. So I've got like for the treat yourself example, right? I play magic cards with my husband a lot. And so I really wanted some of the new packs that had come out. And they're kind of expensive, but I'm working on a really big book, and there's a lot of pages left that I have been leaving to last because I don't think they're going to be very fun to make. And so I put Post-it notes on them. And when I finished that page, I got that, that magic card pack. I felt like a kid getting my like Pokemon cards, right? So that was what I had been using on my own, which combined that goal setting, my interest in trading card games, and then the rewards. But then what I ended up doing now has been to put Post-it notes on packs and put them on the fridge like a bounty board. And so now if me or Josh, whoever finishes it first gets the pack. And so it adds this like level of competition and scarcity to it, where there's times where I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm going to go do that thing today. And I'll go out there and it's already, gone. And next to it is the like lamp that I bought from Target 2 months ago that we never put together. And it's like put together. I'm like, oh, like, I'm so happy it's done. But also I wanted to do the thing I didn't want to do, So that's pretty fun. And then, another kind of, I would say, remix that I've been doing now for over a year. Have one on Wednesday mornings with my patrons, and then one on Friday mornings with my ADHD coach and friend, Dusty. I call it Avoidance Murder Party. And it is called that because we take the items from our procrastination hit list and take care of them together, right? And so we do that body doubling I've been talking about. We do it over just a Google Meet video. And then we pair it with Pomodoro timers, where you work for 25 minutes and then take a break for 5 minutes and then work for 25 minutes. And we use the 5-minute timers to talk about what we are going to do, and then we'll work, and then it'll end and we'll do, okay, what did you get done? Did you finish everything you wanted to get done? What are you going to do for this next timer? So it really helps break things into that sort of level. And then Kanban board and labeling is another strategy that I really enjoy, where you kind of have like physical Post-it notes everywhere, signaling each task, and then you are able to kind of move them from like lane to lane pretty much. And I use some color coding to make this happen. And I started back in 2018. I think my husband kind of showed me this at first, like a Scrum board he works in tech. And so I was using it to help plan our wedding. So I was like, all right, all the pink Post-it notes are things I have to do. The blue are things you need to do. And the yellow things are stuff that either one of us or both of us needs to do. So that was just on the wall above our couch. And then it changed into, okay, I'm going to do this on, a whiteboard. And I've got one at the co-working space. I've got one in my office, and I'm using them like everywhere. And no, they don't all stick forever. Like that's the other thing is like, the boards on the one on the bottom left, we did that for about 2 weeks. And then it just sat there. Right. And we stopped using it. And that used to register as like failure in my head instead of, we did that for 2 weeks. That actually helped for 2 weeks, 2 weeks that we wouldn't have had help, right? Like not looking on that, what did we get out of it kind of element. But the most effective form of this, and the one that I am currently using, this is I took this picture like an hour ago of my board of how I use Kanban boards, but around my monitor. So the bottom is where I kind of put my to-do list items. And then on the right is the things that are in progress. The top are the things that are done, and then left are things I'm waiting to hear back from that are on hold. And so the nice thing about this is that it really limits the number of to-dos and the number of in progress things I have. I can't just have an unlimited list, right? There's only so much room on my computer monitor, and I do not let myself have like overlapping ones. It's too much. So that's step 3, right? Of like remix and try stuff. And step 4 is just that experimentation, right? See what works, what doesn't work. And when something stops working, that's okay. Like in no way is one of these going to be the magical thing that suddenly you do forever and ever. Like even these Kanban boards, right? Like I go through phases of oh yeah, I remember I really liked that thing, and I'll pick it back up for a certain project that I need. And then the project is over and I don't need this anymore. Right. So if you can think about it, and reframe those like failure to like maintain it as not a failure, but like helpful information about like what works and what doesn't work for you. The same thing as like with Wordle or Wheel of Fortune or something, right? You are not a bad person for guessing the wrong letters. It just informs you more about like what doesn't work, so you can get closer to what does work. And like asking yourself, like, looking at it as a science experiment, as experimenting and tinkering, and not like a pass fail kind of class. And so the last one is about, right, just practicing that self-compassion, being nice to yourself, even if it doesn't work out, because being mean and beating yourself up is just going to make everything harder, and harder to get back to and harder to try again. So I made the anti-planner because I used to think I was a failure for not being able to stick to things, until I realized that like, I don't have to stick to things if I can just bounce back and forth between a bunch of different things, like, and they all get to be new, and, add some new spice to some of them. Because my brain craves variety, that doesn't make me like a failure at all. I just know myself better, right? And being kind of different and not broken. So if you can kind of zoom in to see what's going on, that decision to try something is the hard part. And so here are kind of those steps. Again, if you find this useful, this is really similar to the process of ADHD coaching, which is not, necessarily like financially accessible to everybody, but there are coaches out there who do kind of like group sessions and classes, or online things that are more affordable. So you might want to look into that. I'm going to be doing more tutorials and advice about the emotions that I talked about at the beginning, on my YouTube. You can check it out. I put the little link thing on my website, and then my husband set me up with a podcast thing like 10 seconds before I started this talk. So just again, remember that your worth is not measured in productivity, but you totally got this. And we're doing the second print run of anti-planners, because the first print runs of 10,000 sold out. The second print run is going to be like 2 or 3 weeks behind. So it should still be here end of November, maybe beginning of December. But they're $5 off right now. And thank you. But okay, that's I should have done a better ending for that.
No, I mean, that was perfect. I wish I had a little drum set to hit. What's amazing, I think this has been the most engaged chat we've had by far. I mean, it's gone everywhere from all the emotional sharing to people swapping their Pokemon Go codes so they can start training and battling and swapping together. So that's really exciting. We're actually a little over time. I'm at the airport. I've got to go pick up my parents. I want to thank everyone. We will definitely have this recording up on our website. It usually takes us about 5 days. We'll get this one up as quick as we can. We got a request for captioning. We definitely will caption. And again, this really was an amazing chat. So we're going to make sure we export the chat. We'll make the chat available as well, so that anybody that connected here can share and find everything. Dani, I think you'll love just looking back through the chat.
I love reading the chats. I do read the chats afterwards. So
you got tons of.
If anyone wants to say something, I will read it.
Yeah, but we got like tons of woos in the Q&A that everyone's like, Keith, the chat's off. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm working on it. So we got it fixed, and now the chat has just been blowing up. So really want to thank everyone. We also had some people that were not able to get in. I think this is the first time we've hit our Zoom limit. So Dani, you're setting records across the board for us. So appreciate that. Again, we feel it's a great way to start October and ADHD Awareness Month. Yeah. And just, I think everybody was really resonating too with when you started talking about being weird. I know Jesse Anderson on the podcast this week with Lindsay talked about being weird. Anybody that's seen my desk at work knows I like to keep it weird. It's usually surrounded by toys and art, and people are always like, how do you even focus? And I say, I don't know how you focus without all this stuff.
Yeah,
so
mine is just fidget toys everywhere.
Yeah.
There's like a balloon.
Well, listen, I want to thank everyone. We'll have to do this again. Maybe once the books launches, we can just do a Q&A where people can come back and we can talk more. But this was really
Yeah,
great. Again, it's awesome
if you
watching
end up
people.
coming up with your own kind of strategies and stuff like that, and you want to at me or hashtag anti-planner, and like that, I'd love to see if people end up coming up with their own kind of takes on things. Because again, I care so much about people making things that work for them, and it's like really,
It's
I think,
true.
important, at least for me, to explain my like thought process of like, here's how to make your own. So even if you don't end up, getting an anti-planner, you are able to kind of make your own.
Well, I think everyone's going to love it. I know the people I've showed the preview pages that you've sent out love it. And so I'm sure people are going to find value because you've just packed it with so many things we can all relate to.
Oh yeah.
The ADHD, the complex mind. So, well, Dani, thank you again for everything today. We'll let everyone know as soon as the recording is up. We look forward to seeing the book. We'll see you in November at Chad, and we're looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Sorry I talked so long. I'll
No,
do
hey,
Q&A later.
yeah. Well, and like I said, we'll post the chat so everyone can
Okay.
connect. But thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Bye.